The Kaaimansgat Pass forms part of the historic Seven Passes Road between George and Knysna, and although it's one of the shortest sections of this remarkable route, it does have a fascinating history. The Kaimans River has carved a deep gorge through the mountains here, creating a formidable obstacle for anyone travelling along the garden route. Long before there was a proper road, the gorge was already being used as a route through the mountains. The earliest travellers followed rough tracks through dense indigenous forest and steep country. One of the first recorded Europeans to travel through the Kaaimansgat was a Mr. A. Butler, who passed through on horseback in 1752. In 1778, Governor Joachim van Plettenberg followed, this time with a wagon party. And getting a wagon through here was no easy task. The original route was steep, rough and badly eroded. Wagons had to be carefully controlled on the descents, and in places the track was little more than a narrow groove through the forest. By the middle of the 19th century, the need for a proper road between George and Knysna had become increasingly important. The answer came in the form of Thomas Bain. Bain was one of the great road builders of the 19th century in South Africa, and in 1867 construction began on what would become the Seven Passes Road. The project was an extraordinary undertaking for its time. Much of the work was done with picks, shovels, hand tools and gunpowder. Roads had to be carefully designed around the contours of the mountains, while bridges and river crossings had to be constructed largely by hand and out of timber. Interestingly, the Seven Passes Road did not simply follow the original track through Kaaimansgat. Bain and his team found a more practical route through the surrounding hills, crossing the Kaimans River further upstream. The road eventually stretched for about 75 kilometers, linking George and Knysna through some of the most spectacular country on the garden route. It was completed in the early 1880s and for many years became the main land route between the two towns. But roads have a habit of becoming victims of their own success. As motor traffic increased, the old Seven Passes Road became too narrow and too slow for modern transport. New roads were built, including the route through the Kaimans River Gorge, and eventually the N2 became the main artery between the two towns. The old road was left behind. And perhaps that is what makes it so special today. Instead of the heavy traffic, the Seven Passes Road offers a much slower journey through the landscape. Here, at Kaaimansgat, the road winds through thick vegetation, following the contours of the mountains and giving occasional glimpses into the deep river valley below. The historic Kaimans River Bridge is another reminder of the changing face of transport in the area. Standing here, it's not difficult to imagine the early travellers who struggled through this country with horses and ox wagons, taking days to cover distances that we can now drive in a matter of hours. The Seven Passes Road has also had its share of modern problems. Flooding and storm damage have periodically closed sections of the historic route, reminding us that the forces Bain and his men were dealing with more than a century ago have never really gone away. The rivers still rise, the mountains still move, and the weather still has the final say. Today, Kaaimansgat is no longer an obstacle that has to be conquered. It's a place to slow down and appreciate. A small section of an old road, but one that carries more than a century and a half of history through the forests and mountains of the garden route. And when you travel the Seven Passes Road, that history is quite literally beneath your wheels.